Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are continuing our Unit 12 on measurement, and we're going to be learning about estimating volume today. Before we do that, we're going to do a quick review of everything we've learned so far in our measurement unit. So, first of all, we've learned how to measure using length, which we use inches, feet, and yards to measure. In the United States, we use something called the U.S. Customary Measurement System. So the U.S. stands for United States, and these are the three things we use to measure length in the United States. We use inches, feet, and yards. Inches are pretty small. They're about this big. If you bend your thumb, it's actually the length between the tip of your thumb and where it bends. That's an inch. There are 12 of those inches inside of a ruler. A ruler is also known as a foot. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 inches inside of this ruler right here, this purple one. And inside of our yardstick, which is this one at the back, there are 3 feet, which means there are 3 of these rulers that fit inside of a yard. Now, we use a yard to measure a football field or things that have longer measurement, and then we use feet to measure how tall people are, and then we use inches to measure very tiny things. We also have something called the metric measurement system. That is what other places in the world use. People in Europe use this to measure things. They don't use inches, feet, and yards. Instead, they use centimeters and meters. Centimeters are very, very tiny. If you rotate your ruler over, it has a centimeter side as well. Centimeters are abbreviated using cm, and there are 100 centimeters inside of a meter stick. A meter stick is not a regular ruler. In fact, it's this big, long stick in the middle here. It's longer than a yard. So a meter stick is longer than 3 feet. It has 100 centimeters in it. And when you're trying to think about that, if you think centimeters and meters, they go together because they both have the word meter in them. And 100 centimeters, centi means 100, like a centipede has 100 legs, or a century has 100 years. So it takes 100 of those little tiny centimeters to equal 1 long meter stick. Okay, let's talk about using a ruler. Whenever you're using a ruler, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you're on the right side of your ruler. If you're measuring centimeters, you're going to want to be on the centimeter side. If you're measuring inches, you're going to want to be on the inch side. Okay, whatever object you're measuring, you're going to line it up starting at 0. Now, most rulers will have a 0 on them. If they don't, you're just going to use the very beginning of your ruler to start measuring your object. So here we're measuring a pin in centimeters, so I'm on my centimeter side, cm, and I'm lining up the tip of the pin with the 0 mark, and I'm seeing how long in centimeters this object is. And if I look very carefully, it is about 10 centimeters long. Now, if I want to measure in inches, I'm going to go to my inch side. I'm also going to line up my marker at the 0 mark for inches and see how long it is. For inches, we go to either the nearest whole inch or half inch. With centimeters, we only go to the whole centimeter in 3rd grade. So for this year, all you need to know is how to measure to the nearest inch or to the nearest half inch. So here we have 4 inches, and I see that my marker goes past 4 inches, but it's not quite to 5 inches. In fact, it's pretty much in the middle between 4 and 5. So this would be 4 full inches and then a half inch added onto it, making it 4.5 inches. Now I want to measure the same marker using a different side of the ruler. I want to know how long it is using centimeters. So I'm going to rotate my ruler to the centimeter side and line up that marker with the 0 mark with the centimeter side. So make sure you're on the cm side, and we're going to just line it up at 0, see how long it is. It goes to about 12 centimeters. So here I'm going to put 12 cm, and that stands for centimeter. All right, next we have talked about estimating length. Estimating length is just guessing the length or height of an object. The way that we measure length is with centimeters, inches, feet, yards, and meters. So if I said, how tall do you think a grown man would be? One way to measure that would be using feet. You're not going to use centimeters typically to measure that because that's a lot of centimeters to use. In the United States, we typically use feet and inches. So I would say he's about 6 feet tall. He's not going to be 6 yards tall. That would be way too tall. He's not going to be 6 meters long. He's not going to be 6 inches tall, and he's not going to be 6 centimeters tall. He's going to be about 6 feet. Or if I wanted to measure the length of a bug or a paper clip, I might say a bug is very tiny. So I'm going to use a tiny measurement to measure that. The tiniest measurements are centimeters and inches. So I'm going to look for an answer choice that has centimeters or inches. If I'm trying to measure the length of like a tractor trailer truck, I would use probably yards or meters, the really big measurement. So with really big measurements like a football field, you're going to want to use yards to measure that, or meters. You're not going to want to use centimeters or inches. So you just got to kind of use common sense when you're estimating length. Today we're going to be estimating volume. Before we do that, let's go over our different types of volume that we have in the United States. In the United States, we use gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. We drew our gallon garden yesterday. You're going to draw one again today. And you're going to start out with a big G. That stands for gallon. And inside of it, you're going to put 4 Qs. 1, 2, 3, 4. For the 4 gardens that the king made for his wife, the queen. Now, these Qs stand for quarts. That's because there are 4 quarts in a gallon. So if I look at my picture of milk, this is my gallon of milk. 4 of these quarts will fit inside of this gallon of milk. Then inside of the Qs, you're going to draw 2 Ps. Those are the 2 princess gardens that we drew yesterday for the princess. She gets 2 inside of each of the queen's gardens. And if you look very carefully, that means that there are 2 pints in 1 quart. So that means there are 2 Ps inside of this Q, meaning that there are 2 pints in a quart. Last but not least, we have our cups. We have 2 Cs, and those are our cat gardens for the royal cat. Meow. And we see that they're very tiny. That's because they are the smallest. It takes 2 of them to fill up this pint. So it's 2 cups in a pint, so 2 Cs in a P, 2 pints in a quart, 2 Ps in a Q, and 4 quarts in a G, 4 quarts in a gallon. Going from biggest to smallest, we start with our gallon is the biggest, then our quarts, then our P, which is our pints, and then our C's, which is our cups. Okay, there's also another variation of this story, and it's a little bit more funny, but the story, another variation goes, there once was a king, King Gallon, and he built a beautiful G garden. And inside of the garden, he built 4 gardens for his queen. And you're like, this is the same story. No, it's not. Listen what happens next. He has 4 queen gardens, and the queen decided to drink 4 cups of tea in each quart in each of her gardens. She drank 4 cups of tea. So she has 4 C's in each of those gardens. So she goes around, she drinks 4 cups, and then she goes to the next one, and she drinks 4 more. And she drank so much tea that at the end of every time she drank 4 cups, inside of the quart, she had to go P. So there are 2 P's inside of the quart. So there are 2 pints in a quart, 4 cups of tea that made the queen have to go pee inside of her garden. So that's another way to remember it. We also have something called metric measurements. This is what other people outside of the United States use. They also use meters. So they use meters and centimeters to measure length. They use liters and milliliters to measure volume. They all rhyme. So meters and liters, centimeters and milliliters. So a liter is about the size of a quart. And our American version of using this is we use liters with like the pop bottles, the big family size ones that you're going to buy, the big 2 liters. And we call them 2 liters. That's because there are 2 liters inside of them. So if you cut it in half, that's 1 liter. Also, a liter would be one of those big sparkling like water bottles that you can get at Walmart, or like it's bigger than a normal like drink that you would get at the store. Maybe like a big Gatorade, like a really big one. That would be about a liter, okay? Inside of a liter, we have 1,000 milliliters. Thousands of these little tiny milliliters. Milliliters are very small. They're smaller than a cup. So it takes about 20 drops of water to equal 1 milliliter. A milliliter is just drops of water. Like it's very tiny. So we have milliliters and liters. So all of them together, putting them in order from biggest to smallest, we have gallons, which is obviously our biggest. Think about a big gallon of milk. Then we have a liter and a quart. Those are about the same size. A liter and quart are both about the same size of one of those really big creamer jars that your mom might get at the store to put in her coffee. The big ones. Those are about a quart size. There are 4 quarts in a gallon. Below that, we have pint. A pint is like probably one of those bottles of drinks that you would get from a vending machine. That's like handheld. It's bigger than a can of soda. It's a bottle, but it's not a huge bottle. Okay, so a normal bottle would be about a pint. Then we have a cup. It's one of those small, tiny containers of milk that you would get, or maybe about like a canned drink. That's about the size of a cup. Also, we use cups to measure liquids in cooking and baking. That would be something that we would use as cups. And then the very smallest is milliliters. So I need you to kind of think about this as we are estimating amounts of volume today, because we're going to be guessing how much water and liquid these different objects can hold. So our first one, which would be the best estimate of the volume of a pool? I want you to think about how big a pool is. A pool is huge. So we have 15,000 gallons, which sounds like a lot. It is. Then we have 10 gallons. We have 2 cups, and we have 15 quarts. So I am thinking in my head, a pool is really, really big. I'm going to use the biggest type of measurement I can use for volume. What is the biggest type of measurement we could use for volume? If you said gallons, you are right. 2 cups is going to be not even enough to splash in the pool. 15 quarts, that's a lot, but it's really not that much. Then we are down to B and A. So we have B and A to choose from. 15,000 gallons and 10 gallons. Do you think 10 gallons, let's think about this, 10 milk gallons full of water, do you think that's going to fill up that big, big pool? That would maybe fill up the very bottom of your bathtub, like not even very deep. It's going to take 15,000 gallons to fill up a pool. So if it's a really big thing, you're going to pick a really big amount. So 15,000 gallons is our choice here. All right, which would be the best estimate of a volume of a bowl of cereal? So I want you to think about a bowl of cereal. I want you to think about how much milk you put in your cereal. We have a couple of choices here. We have 2 liters, 2 gallons, 2 cups, and 2 inches. First of all, I see something that doesn't belong here. Inches does not belong. Inches is used to measure length, not volume. Volume is liquid. Length is how long something is. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of 2 inches. That is a dummy answer. We're not going to pick that. We're now left with A, B, and C. 2 liters, 2 gallons, and 2 cups. Let's picture what a 2 liter looks like. A 2 liter is a big thing of Dr. Pepper or Coke or whatever you drink, one of those big 2 liters. Do you put that much milk on your cereal? Then 2 gallons, that would be 2 whole gallons of milk. Do you put 2 whole gallons of milk on your cereal? Or 2 cups. Do you maybe put 2 cups of milk on your cereal if it's a pretty big bowl? What do you think? If you said 2 cups, you are correct. It is 2 cups. 2 gallons would be way too big, and 2 liters would also be a lot of liquid. All right, next we have a large fish tank here. So we're trying to figure out how much it would take to fill up a large fish tank. So I want you to look at this picture. I want you to think, how much water do you think it's going to take to fill this up? So if it's a big object, we're going to want to go with a big measurement. So the biggest measurement I see up here between cups, pints, and gallons is gallons. I'm going to guess that these are going to be gallons that we're going to use, because 20 cups is really not that much, and 20 pints is also not that much. So I'm going to be looking at gallons because this is a big, big thing we're trying to fill up. If we're trying to fill up a big container, we're going to use the biggest type of measurement. So here we have 20 gallons and 2 gallons. We can choose between 20 gallons and 2 gallons. I want you to think, is it going to take 2 milk jugs to fill this thing up? Or do you think it's going to take 20 of those milk jugs to fill it up? Think about it for a second and then let me know what your answer choice is. Okay. What do you think? If you said 20 gallons, you are right. It's going to take 20 gallons to fill this big, big, big fish tank up. Now, if it was a small fish tank, 2 gallons would fill it up. But this is a really big one. It's going to take about 20 gallons, filling up that milk jug about 20 times to fill that big fish tank up. All right, next we have a drink. And if you look very carefully, it tells you how many are in there. So is this 2 gallons, 2 cups, 2 teaspoons, or 2 liters? First of all, I see something up here we haven't learned about, 2 teaspoons. Teaspoons are typically used to measure dry ingredients inside of a recipe. You can also use it to measure a liquid. We don't really talk about teaspoons or tablespoons, so if you see something that doesn't belong, that's a dummy answer. So we're going to get rid of 2 teaspoons, plus that's really small. Next, we're going to look at 2 gallons. Is this the same thing as 2 gallons of milk? No. What about 2 cups? Could you only get 2 cups out of this? No, this looks like enough to feed a whole family. What about 2 liters? Yes, because this is actually called a 2 liter. This is a 2 liter of liquid. So this would be 2 liters full. All right, last but not least, we have a measuring cup. How much do you think, what would be the best estimate of the volume of how much water to put in a cake recipe? A cake recipe. Would we put 1 milliliter, 1 quart, 1 cup, or 1 gallon? A milliliter is the same thing as 20 drops of water. And I'm only going to put 20 drops of water in a cake recipe. That seems a little bit too small. A quart would be a really big creamer bottle. Are we going to put that much water in a cake recipe? Probably not. What about a cup? Do we typically put cups inside of a recipe? Yes, we usually measure in cups, so that might be it. And then we have a gallon. I know for sure it's not going to be a gallon of water, because if I put a gallon of water in this recipe, then it's going to be a very runny, gross cake. So my answer is going to be 1 cup. So with estimating volume, you kind of really just have to sit and think and go through all the different choices before deciding and thinking about how big those objects are. So if you can think of something like a gallon of milk or a little 20 droplets of water for milliliters, that's really going to help you visualize how much liquid they're talking about, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching, guys.